let's go over our program for tonight. So we are having some discussions over Shabbat, and so let's talk about this one.
Yeah.
What do we have? AI.
So it's a topic that, believe it or not, I mean.
You're just talking into your hand.
Oh, it's okay. It's a topic that that's what I do. It's a topic that, believe it or not, it's been a conversation actually with myself and my father for I would say 20 years, maybe at least 15 years, and it's one of the factors that led me into being interested in, just thinking about what Hashem is, and then which led me into Torah and led me into, basically changing my life, 180, 360 degrees, depending how you look at it. But the funny part is that
wait, just get the topics first.
No, I'm just getting, the ironic part is that it's something that's not talked about in Judaism or by the Jewish.
Well, here we are. We're Jews, and we're talking.
And we're doing it. So
we're doing it tonight. We're changing history.
The topic on the grander title is AI,
emulating the Creator,
which is artificial intelligence, but it really goes into, we're developing all this technology and we're emulating the Creator. Mm-hmm. And for example, if you look at all the stuff that's going on with like tech, and it's getting more and more advanced, and we're constantly releasing more and more advanced.
So where's that taking us?
Yeah, where's that taking us? So like you look at video games, for example.
Oh my gosh.
You're always trying to make it real and real and real and real, and at the point of like virtual reality, where it's like virtual
replaces
reality.
people's actual lives. They have these movies like Tron, right?
Or what is it? Ready Player. I saw that movie on the plane. Ready Player One. Like I don't know if you've seen it. It's
no, but I heard about it.
Like Spielberg directed that. So like stuff like that, and we're like, why are we doing this? And why are we always trying to like create video game? And then like you have these dudes who are like real hockey players in the NHL, sitting and playing with their own, their character, so to speak, and then they're actually going and complaining to the video game makers, hey, you gave me like my player like a 90 rating. Dude, what do you care? It's a digital version of yourself. As long as you're like playing in real life, what do you care that?
Money.
Yeah, what do you know? But what do you care?
Avatar.
What do you care that your avatar has a 95 as opposed to a 90 rating? Unless there's something behind that, you know what I mean? So like, so I was saying like these conversations are being had. If you watch like a show like Joe Rogan and you see like Elon Musk, he goes on there for 4 hours. If you can get past him smoking, half of Mexico, you actually listen to the conversation that they had, and you realize, it's a conversation that like every 2 seconds for me, I was listening. I'm like Torah.
So the question is, and it's just why is this conversation not being had, and what makes you, who are, let's just say, you didn't grow up within the Jewish educational system, mm-hmm. right? And you're still looking at this and you're saying this is Torah. Why is it not part of the conversation?
Correct.
What tells you that this is Torah?
What tells me that it's Torah, it's basically that all we're doing here, at least in my opinion, is we're trying to emulate the Creator.
Okay.
And then when you look at us, for example, like a few years ago, I don't know if you remember, maybe you didn't follow this, the number one chess player in the world, Garry Kasparov, he played against the blue IBM. Yeah. So the question is, why do we need to sit down and play against a computer? Why do we need to show? Why does a human being, who's essentially an advanced computer, your brain is an advanced computer, a very advanced computer processing thing? Why do we need to sit down and prove to ourselves or demonstrate to ourselves that we can beat a computer? What's behind this desire of ours? What are we doing here?
We want, there's that scene. Yeah. This is a great idea. This is a scene in AI.
Yeah, the movie AI.
Steven Spielberg, where the protagonist is talking to his friend, this robot who's basically a gigolo robot, mm-hmm. right? And he's saying, why do the human beings have all these flesh fests and they hate us? It's because they know we're going to replace them. We're going to outlive them.
Oh yeah. That's funny.
And one of our deepest fears are from those things which are most human-like, like zombies, clowns, right? Yeah. Those things that are humanoid, right? They scare the heck out of us. Yep. And that's part of the idea of the Nephilim, right? The whole mythological idea of these angels who go into human form and they try to do better than us, and they're like a super intelligence. What chance do you have against super intelligence, right? That's a very, very primal idea.
It's like Terminator 2 T-1000, the Skynet is now self-aware. No, they said Skynet is now self-aware.
Right, so the whole self-awareness thing, if it's in a foreign intelligence, that's what scares us, because we want to believe that we are relevant and that what we have achieved is not going to outdo us and undermine us because of its computational power. Now, one of the way that Kasparov actually won against, what was it, Blue? Not Blue.
They tied. He won one, tied one, and lost one.
But how did he win?
I don't know.
The way he won is because he understood that what the IBM computer is doing is simply it has a database of all the games that have ever been played, and it just has a very fast and enormous computational power. You cannot outdo that. What he did was smart. What he did is just did something that nobody ever did before. So the computer didn't know what to do.
He just he was like, and the computers are like, what is this guy doing? It's not in the annals of
because
chess,
it's not computation.
Correct.
It's a different way of looking.
It's ex supra consciousness.
Right, and that is what is uniquely human.
Yeah.
Now the question is, will AI ever be able to do that? The problem is, and this is talking about cutting edge science now, is that we were relegating consciousness to the brain. The problem is that there's no relationship between the two, other than the fact that you need the brain to be functioning in order to be conscious.
Because consciousness comes from the neshama, basically.
Whatever that is. Whatever that is, but I'm saying animals don't have consciousness, they have intelligence.
Yeah.
Right? The human consciousness is basically the awareness of the fact that you're aware.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being very intelligent.
Yeah.
Aware of the fact that you are aware means that you're able to see yourself in other scenarios and to think outside of yourself.
You're able to look at yourself from the outside.
And from an evolutionary point of view, the advantage of this is tremendous because there are many animals that use tools.
Yeah.
Right? There can be a chimpanzee who will find a rock and it will hit a lion.
Yeah.
But how many chimpanzees will say, hey, what if I'm going to meet a lion down the line? Maybe I should make a contraption, put it around my belt, and hold on to it. That is human thinking. Now think of the advantage of what it takes for the regular bear to make it to the polar bear. How many millions of bears have to die in order to make the gradual adjustments, or for the ones to survive?
I just can't bear that. The thought of that. Anyway. Listen,
that should be a test.
I wasn't going to stand for the kedusha today, so I don't stand for that stuff. Anyway,
they don't know the Syrian joke. Come on.
Yeah.
So, but a human being will say, well, I guess we need to pack this and pack this and pack that.
Yeah.
Right, and furs and whatever. So it's an inference. So
Russians and Bright Beach. Anyway.
So you're seeing except now that we've imported those Eastern European furs to the Middle East, that's a different story.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, that's our point. So from that point of view, that's what makes humanity unique. So the question is, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Is it just in the brain? And in a sense, we know that it's not only the brain; it's also your extended self. It's even your body, and even the world you live in is an extension of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if something is an extension of ourselves, then that means you need all of it in order to be aware. I mean, you're definitely not the same thing without an arm, right?
True.
So what about without being part of the universe? The Nephilim are not part of the universe. They are simply an intelligence injected in a Capaxian way. Right?
Kevin
Spacey.
Kevin Spacey movie. Right? Kevin Spacey's persona non grata now in Hollywood because of his issues, unfortunately, but brilliant actor.
I'm not really sure about his
issues. He had whatever stuff with underage people. Whatever. It's all coming out now. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. This past week has been. I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's the issue that's being discussed, and the question is there a chance that AI will be able to do that thing, which is probably not likely, only because we're talking about computational ability, and that's not what consciousness is.
Yeah.
As long as you think consciousness is that, then you'll have this question.
Yeah.
The question is how you're looking at
You're saying the reason that people fear AI is because they don't understand.
That we're computational.
They think,
and we're not.
Only computational. Right?
We're not. That's not what makes. Look, Kasparov is not. How many steps ahead and permutations in chess can you possibly calculate in your head?
Most people, I mean, even Kasparov, probably he has his limits.
Right, I'm saying that
he can calculate 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever.
No, but you're to beat it. Okay, the permutations, the possibilities are impossible for human to calculate.
Yeah.
And yet we still manage to do incredible things that machines can't do.
Correct.
And we're trying to find ways to get machines to be able to simulate things that babies pick up on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Like just to identify what is a table. When is it a small table? When is it a big chair?
Yeah.
What if it's designed differently? Right? And kids figure these things out.
Yeah.
What is it? So, okay, fine. So that's a discussion. What else? So we're starting with that. I think the way we're going to lead, hopefully, towards what does it mean that this is Torah.
Yeah.
So you started talking about that. How did you...
I started trying to get into the whole idea of, if you watch the movie Blade Runner,
yes,
there's that question: do androids dream of electric sheep? So meaning, do these things? Meaning, like, it goes back to, like, if we're emulating the creator, and we are just, again, I use this very loosely, we're just advanced AI, but we have what we think, what is called free will, right? Just because you said you were conscious, we're the only ones that have free will. Animals don't have free will, we have free will. But is it really free will? Meaning, like, is it really... we think we're making, like, some sort of choices every day in life, A or B or C or D, and then there's the question of if Hashem, if the Creator knows what our future is, right? And everything's, so to speak, predetermined. What's that phrase that I mentioned from Pirkei Avos? Free will is given, yes, but everything is, so to speak, preordained. So. So, for example, like, so how does that reconcile with what we're talking about now? So we're programming these machines, and essentially, with these machines, we're programming them. We kind of know what's going to be the result with all of their behaviors.
They're going to decide to do things unpredictably out of some sort of moral motive.
Meaning, but we program them to do those things.
Why would we? Why did you want to program something that will be able to be very sophisticated to figure out solutions to problems, but won't go around doing, like, the whole iRobot thing, the 3 rules, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not talking about the level of consciousness. You're talking about a very sophisticated machine which will be able to figure out tasks and unburden us from needing to deal with computational tasks.
Correct. But I think that people involved in this, they're also thinking about these supra things. They're not just... Like, if you talk to most people working AI, it's not
they're
just
thinking about it. The question
stuff.
is, are they thinking the right way about what consciousness is and what might a consciousness want to do?
If they're not yet, they will have to. Like my father says. We have a friend who works in AI. Actually, he works in AI and, like, in robotics.
I know someone who's from that cutting edge of AI.
So the guy's not from, and my father tells me all the time, this guy at some point is going to become from. Literally, he's going to have to start thinking about these things and about Hashem and about this. He's going to have no choice. He's going to hit a wall in his work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just very often, the question of what does God mean to people and how that fits in and how they come to it.
He's a Jewish guy, whatever.
And then how does that relate to your Judaism when, as you said, nobody's talking about this?
Nobody's talking and they're just eating cholent.
So,
and how does this relate to cholent?
How does this relate to cholent? I'm very nonchalant when it comes to that.
Exactly.
So, first of all, the subject of free will, I think, is important to discuss. The best source, there's many people who talk about free will in even medieval sources. The Rambam is, as far as I know, is the most cutting edge ahead of his time, I would say, at least. And pretty cutting edge.
And you're talking like 1100s or something.
Yeah, 12th century. Ahead of his time in the way he describes free will. And he says quite an amazing thing. The cool thing is where he says it, which very much has to do with our time as we're preparing for Rosh Hashanah, and it has to do with Teshuvah. So it's in the Halachot of Teshuvah. It's in the 5th and the 6th chapters where he deals with the concept.
Teshuvah is repentance.
Loosely translated.
Yeah.
But it's related to this parsha. It's the end of this parsha that we read. So...
Beeping.
Yeah, I think that's the laundry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. That means everything's clean and everything's ready. We're talking about Rosh Hashanah, and so in terms of tshuva, so he talks about free will because that obviously fits in, because the point is, are you free to choose your own destiny and your path, and what can you do, and reward and punishment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So in that context, the Rambam asks the obvious question, which is asked. What you might say, if God knows everything that is determined to happen, then you can say that I don't have any free will, right? Which the Ravad, the Ravid, actually comes out and attacks him quite harshly for what he says. If you read between the lines, he's actually praising him and saying you're going into areas that lay people can't follow. Why are you even raising the issue?
Do not.
If you read between the lines.
Yeah.
But even the Ravid, for criticizing the Rambam, has been harshly criticized later on. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So what the Rambam basically says is as follows. He says, the answer to this is as broad as the ocean and as broad as the land and as deep as the ocean, and that really doesn't matter. I'm raising the question because I need to bring to your attention the following issue, which is as follows. Mm-hmm. God doesn't know things the way human beings know things, in the sense that we and our knowledge are separate, but God and his knowledge are one and the same. Yeah. Which means that it's we're using the wrong metaphor. We're saying, since we think in a way that absorbs information, I'm now reading modern words into the Rambam, but this is basically the concept. We're absorbing input into our processing device, and that is our knowledge. There is no inside-outside absorbing data as far as God's consciousness. God is His own consciousness. He is it's like the subject and the object.
It's like the end of Aleinu.
It's those ideas of God's God's oneness and unity. So in that sense, there is nothing that is happening outside of God that God needs to now know, that is what is going to happen in some future. That's not how it works.
It's just this.
And therefore, the question is a ridiculous question. And the reason he asks the question which he never answers, which is what the Ravad attacks him for. He says, why are you asking the question if you're not answering? He's like, that's because the point isn't the answer. The point is the only reason you have the question is because you're thinking the wrong way about it. There isn't a question. Right? God isn't sitting there doing anything.
True.
As far as God, think about this. I was just reading this in Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning. If you try to describe a chair, okay? It is only a chair within a limited part of space and time. Right beforehand, it was a tree, which was beforehand part of the earth. It's going to decay. It's going to burn when the sun consumes the earth. When is it a chair?
Did you ever see that whole thing? How they describe how they make a pencil, and it's this whole machination that has to
go. Yeah, that's what's his name? Friedman.
Whatever.
Milton. Yeah.
And then it's like and then pencil. Oh no, Milton Friedman.
Milton Friedman.
Yeah. And then it's like pencil. And it's like tree.
The power of economics.
And then.
Like the power of economics. It's called, I've seen the video. It's called The Power of Economics. But if you think in that sense, when God, for example, talks about the way things are going to end up, as far as God's concerned, it's already happened. Right? This is what Kabbalah is about. Kabbalah is about trying to look at the different layers of reality and see how one relates to the other, when from the above level, it already happened. Let me give you an example that we use today. The concept of a half-life. Radioactivity. Right? You know that there is a given rate at which this uranium is going to decay, and half of it, to the millisecond, is going to decay into something else.
That doesn't mean I can go to Chernobyl and Pripyat today and survive. There you go.
No, you're just going to decay. But what is happening on the quantum level? You have billions of particles. At any given moment, one of them is going to decay. It's the isotope, whatever. It's going to fall apart. It's going to turn into one of the lower element in the elementary chart, right? And the table of elements. Okay, fine. So in the periodic table. Yeah, this is translating the Hebrew. What's happening when one quantum says to the other, "Hey, Bobby, I got to go and decay at this point," and then John says, "Yeah, but it's really my turn to go." Like, who's making the decision?
Why are they Syrian Jews? These quantum guys?
Because we're in Brooklyn.
Okay, Bobby and Joey.
Yes, Bobby and Joey. So Bobby has to go, and Joey stays. Like, how do we decide if Bobby goes or Joe goes? It's all chaotic down there. No. But you're looking at it from the level above, and it's quite obvious how it's gonna. It's not. There's no question about it. You flick the light switch, and you're unaware of the thousands and thousands of quantum chaotic steps that are taking place between when you hit the button and when the light turned on, and you're like, yeah, of course, I turn on the light and that happens. Yeah. That's not how it really works. The only question is what level you are on, and that's the concept in Kabbalistically. It's called Hishtalshalut.
Hishtalshalut.
Like there's links in a chain, right? Links in a chain. So you have on this world, on the quantum level, it's chaotic, and it seems like everybody has
made the order of creation,
right? And then on top, on the world on top. Yeah. You on the ring on top and the shalshelet on top. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean? I just said, "Let there be light," and boom, there will be light.
Hashem is the frame, right? Simple,
and so on and so forth. And that's also the concept of olam shana nefesh, right? The dimension of space. It's done of time, and then there's the soul, the spirit. And usually, what's the base level on the world above is the highest emergent level on the below. And so, for example, where did these things interact? We say that in the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kodashim. Yeah. There's a cool thing because we know the measurement of the Holy of Holies.
And then it's stretched.
It's not that it's stretched. It's that the Aron itself, the Ark itself, would not be calculable. In other words, from one end to the next is going to be, let's say, 20 feet. right? But then if you measure to the beginning of the ark, it's 10 feet, and to the end of the ark, to the wall is 10 feet. What happened to the 2.5?
It was always like morphing. It was always
because it's part of a different space.
Yeah.
It's not part of
different dimension.
It's a different dimension, and so at that, when the Kohen Gadol, the highest person, at the highest time of the year and the highest place in the year, all interact in Yom Kippur. That's like where we have that connection to another reality.
Yeah.
And so that's really important, because when we're talking about Bereshit, we're talking about the 6 days of creation are basically man and woman walk into the sunset and everything's perfect.
Yeah.
And then in the next chapter, you hear the second creation narrative, which kind of tells you actually things weren't working so well. So how do you reconcile that? It's very simple. It's a vertical reading.
You know what's funny?
You follow that?
No, I thought, yeah.
So at first you have the level which is perfect. Now you're reading down and you're opening up and up and up.
Yeah.
We're in the vertical reading, right?
Physicists today are discovering that we have 10, 11 dimensions, but they have no idea what. I guess they never got into the philosophical question: what's the purpose of all that? That's
not a physics question.
So Torah goes there. When you describe it.
I mean, Kabbalistically, but these are spatial dimensions. We're talking beyond spatial.
No, but that's. Yeah.
It's not like God's in the 11th dimension. God is outside of the concept of dimension. Dimension is parameters. It's how to place something here as opposed to here or here, or when exactly it is.
You know what's funny? Yom Tov Glazer has a whole lecture where he talks about, so in 1967, the whole LSD hit the streets, so to speak, he loves that stuff. He started saying, but he's like, you think it's an accident that the Baal Tshuva movement started then? He's like, you're talking about these Jewish hippies sitting around, and some rabbi comes up to him and says, hey, let me talk to you about stuff beyond space and time.
Sure,
and then the hippie's like, I've been there, dude, so tell me more. And then they start, and then you get into Hasidus. That's how Rabbi Schloss got it. He's like,
my neighbor.
He went to a shir about Hasidus, and then he was into like Buddhism, and he came to a rabbi. He's like, are you sure this is Judaism? The rabbi said, well, this is Hasidut. This is part of the thing that you never heard, because he grew up like Litvak, which they don't talk about that stuff, or at least the people he was learning with. And then he was just like, okay, like, let me hear more. Would you like to hear more? And then that's how he got started with the whole.
The truth is that there is a need for rigorous training and rigorous thinking in order to really be on key, and that's where I am worried that people who come in like that aren't inclined to do the hard work. And acquiring Torah is hard work.
But I think a lot of them did afterwards. That's just the entry point.
Some did, but some just become floaty nachlodi.
Yeah. Even that's okay. Whatever.
Yeah, but you realize when push comes to shove and you've got to talk about serious issues, like you're talking about now, in order to be able to really have the conversation, you really have to
you need a breath.
Work. You have to work. Yeah. You got to work through Chumash. Yeah. You got to know Torah. You have to know Mishnah. You have to know Gemara. You have to know so you really have to put in the work. Yeah. And if you don't put in the work, you're just going to be talking big ideas, but you can't give examples.
So there's a Rav who wrote actually a book about what we're talking about. Abraham Sutton, you probably know if you heard. He's actually a Syrian, but he's like kind of pro.
The name kind of gives it away.
Yeah, he wrote a book. He wrote a book called Spiritual Technology, but he brings in sources.
I didn't read it. I
saw
the book.
I really recommend it.
Somebody recommended it. I didn't get a chance to read it.
It's very a lot of summary, a lot of that, but sources, like legit sources, And he actually gave the Birkat Abayat at Yeshua, my partner's house.
Maybe that's where I saw the book.
Could be. Were you there? You were there.
I was there.
So that's what the book was.
That was our last tasting in Torah. I think was there.
So that was
in August, right? No, it couldn't have been August.
No.
In June, July.
I mean,
whatever that weekend.
Yeah,
we were in
Muncie. We went for Shabbos. Yeah, so I mean, these conversations are kind of being had in these like little corners. Like you said, your rabbi is writing stuff about it. He's talking about it. But on a bigger
mosaic identity,
on a bigger scale, it's just not, it's just not happening.
So let's talk about there's 2 points. First of all, there's emulating the Creator, and then there's like, what does it mean that this is a Torah idea?
Yeah.
So emulating the Creator, Chazal do say that if it wasn't if it wasn't for the sin, for the primal sin. Tzaddikim would be sitting and creating worlds.
Yeah.
What does that mean that we would be creating? Why would we want to create?
What do they say this in Gemara, or is this in Talmud?
Probably. Yeah. I could look it up, but not now. Why would they be creating worlds? What's the purpose? You're emulating the creator. We need to emulate the creator in any way that we can, and one of them is to be a creator, right? And so we do create worlds, right? Writers, computer games,
or apps. Like
books.
it goes an app, it's a world.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can create a world, but the world, like the characters, like Harry Potter lives. I mean, it's these people are real. Yeah. Right, they're real to us. They matter to us.
Yeah, people have conventions and they have this. And why did the character do this? And look at this guy and this guy's like this, and it's like
fandom.
Dude, they're fake.
Fandom, right? Yeah. Fandom, fangasm. Yeah, so all of that, and that's because it's really is kind of a reality. Yeah. So imagine if you could create a real world. Like, why not?
Like on MTV.
But the thing about AI. This is a different idea. Is also if it wasn't for the Chet, I think that the Zohar talks about, the Ramchal talks about.
Chet is the quote unquote
the primal sin. Yeah, except not primal sin in the Christian sense.
Yeah, primal missing
in the sense of the eating from the tree.
Primal missing the mark.
Primal missing the mark. What does it mean eating from the tree? Like, what did that change, and what was the perspective that led Adam to do that, and humankind to engage in that kind of thinking, which is a mechanical thinking? The result of that is that we needed to live in this world of process in which we have to do a lot of hard work and to work the land instead of the land sort of functioning for us. We are reaching the point in which technology is catching up and being able to take care of all the mundane things so that we can actually be human as opposed to just play video games all day. Yeah. So what does it mean to be human in enlightened life, as the Greeks say? Like, what are we talking about? Right? So the idea of that I was bringing up from Kabbalistic literature is that the Nachash, the snake, the serpent, is this concept of an intelligence which can carry out all of these tasks without being to be told what to do, because it's very intelligent, and yet it is there to serve you. And therefore the Chazal say that every person should have had two Nechashim, two servants, two super intelligences. Technology is reaching the point where it will be able to do that.
It's already doing.
And that's the AI that we're talking about, as opposed to a conscious one which will emulate us.
My sister, my sister, she's 22, she doesn't know a world. For her, it's like, okay, want to get somewhere? Uber, Lyft. Want something fixed? TaskRabbit.
But you're going to be able to just think about it.
Yeah. So that's already the next level. Be like,
so what? So
that's our next level. I'm saying she doesn't know a world without these things.
Right.
I'm like, I have a frame of reference. I know, okay, you know that I had to get my screwdriver and go like this, and then drive myself and figure out like this. For her, it's like, okay.
But the idea is the expectation has changed the world, right?
Like entitlement when you talk about it.
In a certain sense, you can say we've become so dependent that we can't fend for ourselves, which is an issue.
Dependent and entitled at the same time.
Yeah, that's
if it doesn't work, we're upset.
But so that's where the Torah perspective comes in. What is this development? Where is it going? And why is it important? Because it's going there, and we need to have the conversation. And the conversation really needs to be, if these things are there to help us be more human, what really is our goal? Because if our goal was right now to just make a living, right, and to be able to kind of express what it means to be children of God, the chosen nation, and all that through how we interact, but then all these interactions are being taken over by computers. So what is it that we're actually doing? I mean, talk about the invisible hand of Adam Smith, right? Like the market. Yeah. When computers do that for us, oh my gosh. No,
that's what he called it.
The black hand of cannibalism.
Capitalism.
Oh,
you could those are to socialists today. Those are interchangeable parts. Capitalism, cannibalism. Eat each other alive. Eat ourselves alive. Whatever.
Yeah. They will eat each other.
What
the Joker.
Oh,
the Joker. Yes.
What happens to people? Anyway.
They're living in their silly little lives.
What's his name?
All I do
I'm curious to see
is
how
take their silly little lives and turn them upside down.
You sound like the church lady from SNL. Isn't that convenient? Anyway, I'm curious to see what's his name. Joaquin Phoenix play the new.
I don't know why they keep
the backstory of Joker.
Why do they keep on doing
but
more
it's
Jokers?
The backstory of Joker.
Fine.
It's not just Batman. It's his. Opus.
I thought they tried to do that in that horrible. What was that movie called?
What?
Suicide Squad.
Oh
my God.
Yeah, but that's just whatever.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway,
it didn't speak to me so much in the movie. So anyway, I mean, I only saw parts of it, but the Joker part was just
unnecessary.
They had to show the Stockholm syndrome of Harley Quinn, and anyway. So what is the Torah perspective on this? I mean, if Torah is talking about what... There's this whole weird midrashim that talk about how trees are going to give you... are going to give you cakes. I mean, the point is that the world...
or stuff that you want, whatever you want it to taste like, it's going to be like...
So the point is, it's like... Because we're made for greater things. Like, I'm stuck with all this mundane. I mean, I want to live. Yeah. Right? So, I'm a human being, to quote the Elephant Man. I am a human being. Yeah.
What is?
We're trying to be human. So what does it mean to be human? And now that these issues are being alleviated and lifestyle is allowing us, so what is it that we're about? And you see the people struggling, and so they're trying to entertain themselves, video games or all kinds.
Are you not to entertain?
Yeah, I'm not going to.
It's really back to like Roman Empire.
Yeah, we're not going to talk.
We have like UFC now. People bashing each other's.
Give me a second.
Bashing each other's brains in. Yeah. Speaking of entertainment. Pause for station identification.
And
we're back.
If you like Independence Day, I'm back.
Yeah. No, so like we're at a point where we have UFC and like we're going back to primitive, just dudes, just like
I mean, Roman entertainment, man.
It's crazy. Like thank God, nobody dies, but it's really
the Romans, they just need entertainment.
Serious
stuff. So what is a Torah perspective? Really, that brings us to this concept. What is a Torah perspective? The Torah perspective is, first of all, what Torah is really. I'm going to say the Torah perspective. Say what is a Yisrael perspective? What is Israel? If you think about what is Israel, we have a mission statement, right? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. It's bringing that unity of God to the world, and that is Israel's mission. And in that sense, God is our Lord. That's what the Shema Yisrael means. Here, listen, O Israel, right? God is our Lord. God is one. So the one who is leading us is this God, right? He's our Lord. The Lord means there's a unique relationship between Israel to God, and He's leading us, right? Which is the concept of Elokeinu, of Lord. Yeah. So we're going towards this. That means that we have this global vision. We're this enterprise, and if we're this enterprise, then these things really matter. Where is the world going? Where do we fit in? And these developments, why are they important? And that's really the questions we need to ask. But the concept that we have brought to the world is the concept of process. Mm-hmm. You think, for example, about China, right? Great people, but...
China. Sorry, I just wanted to do that. I always want to do that on camera. I never got a chance to do that.
Yes, of course.
Anyway.
It was born for camera.
It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a lot of friends.
Their economy is falling, collapsing. Okay.
So China has this concept of things just ongoing and continuing. And I actually read a piece on Jet Li. It was talking about when he first met a Hollywood director and did his first Hollywood movie. So the director showed him a National Geographic video of a lion. And they build up how the lion is getting ready to pounce his prey. Yeah. And they build up, and then the climax happens. And the thing is, in Chinese movies, there isn't any of that climax.
It's just like right into the fight.
It's just...
You insulted my dojo!
It's just happening all the time. There's this flat line. There's no, we're going towards something.
There's no crescendo, thing towards a crescendo.
That's something that Western society, which is influenced by the Abrahamic faiths, and that's where that comes from. Mm-hmm. That concept of we actually need to go somewhere, to the point where Hitler, said...
And Jews created Hollywood, so we put that into movie making.
But then you talk about Hitler's quote about the Jewish consciousness, like, just let us live, leave us alone. Or to quote Golan, leave us alone! Leave Spiegel alone! We're going crazy.
It's a modern day Spiegel.
But these ideas of Israel have trickled down and permeated into Western society to the point where people have lost touch of what that is as Israel themselves. Look at the Western culture and say, like, that's what we want. We don't have that. And they don't realize where it's coming from. Right? And that whole concept. And so that concept, which goes down to Bereshit, bara Elokim, and what does it mean to be a mission? That's what we're at. The mission of reaching perfection. Mm-hmm. Right? Not a utopia in which we can just enjoy everything. That is ridiculous.
That's not the point.
The perfection is really existence. It's existing to the fullest. Mm-hmm. And really being focused on those kinds of things. And this is where we're at. And so Israel perspective is one which considers where are things going? How am I part of this? What does it mean to fully exist? Yeah. And to really contemplate how are we different? And how am I to be part of this world? Yeah. Of this world. Mm-hmm. Right? AI is the next development. But we are the consciousness. We are the walking and talking earth, and that's what the name Adam comes from. It comes from Adama. Right? It comes from the earth. We are conscious earth.
We go back to it. Yeah.
And you think about korbanot, for example. People think that korbanot are this archaic sacrificial idea. What is a korban really, if you think about it? Without understanding our evolutionary roots, korbanot are kind of ancient. But if you think about where we're going now, people are going back to nature and green and trees and the sensitivity to our roots. Yeah. I mean, that's what korban literally means, something which brings you close. Yeah. It's taking something which is lower in the evolutionary chain and raising it through our commitment to God with our consciousness. In other words, we are making it part of the big picture. That's what it really is supposed to be.
Sure.
And that is an idea which you can fathom being restored. Mm-hmm. Not in a sacrificial way.
Our friend Josh Wander did the simulation in the Rova. He did it for the past 3 years. I don't know if you've seen that. He Facebook Lives it, and then he brings in Machonim. Your friends of Machonim.
I know.
Listen, you can say whatever you want. It's a little sticky, silly, whatever.
Because they're trying to bring back that old thing as opposed to saying, how do we approach this from the 21st century?
Or Rav Cooks talks about, he talks about we may not even have animals. We may just have
the thing is, whatever's going to be, it means korbanot are not so crazy when you really think about where the world is growing. It's just going to be from the going back to nature thing in a very healthy way. I don't know what it's going to look like.
It's funny because we have now, if you come here to the East Coast, there's all these, Isabella Friedman, there's that other place. There's like people doing homesteads and all these kind of stuff. And it's Jews. It's like from Jews on a
forefront. This is where it's going. That's why korbanot in the Beit HaMikdash are really doable. Yeah. It's just going to be different in the sense that that's where it's coming from in a normal way, without the cuckoo-ness. Yeah. And that's the conversation. We are having the conversation. Guys, you're watching history. Mm-hmm. Change.
Oh yeah.
That's it. All right. Well, that's what we hope for this Rosh Hashanah, to get to be infused with the right kind of clarity and potential and energy to be able to really carry out our mission and to bring us closer to this, to fully exist. Yeah. The time has come. Mm-hmm. All right.
So here's my question. What do you think it will take for the Jewish world to start having a conversation about this? I mean, we're having a conversation. We're two guys.
To just keep it real. Yeah. To just keep it real, to be real, to talk to people, and just to be real, and not to be afraid, because authority is breaking down. Like you no longer have a Jewish leadership who actually knows where
they're
going.
Having a sifas about cell phones.
They're talking about maintenance. They're talking about not falling off. They're talking about at least maintaining people within so that they can figure it out. But nobody really knows where we're going. Yeah. And we have a sense that we are going somewhere, and we need to be real about that. And when you have this conversation with people, you can really talk to cynics and show them something else without being ashamed and embarrassed.
I found that personally in the experience.
If I could just say half the things I can say on camera, I want to say on camera. I can't. Talk to me in person if you have any questions. Yeah. All right. Shavua Tov.
All right.
Yiva Chatima Tova, and we'll see you guys really soon.
It's been real.